behalf of Tim and I, we are all heartbroken about what happened in Virginia Beach. Virginia Beach is a remarkably strong city, and it will get through this, just as the Commonwealth of Virginia will get through this. I also want to commend the incredible actions of the law enforcement officials, police officers who rushed into a building with an active shooter, and but for their activities, chances are there would have been more than the 12 murdered. Remember, of those 12, 11 of them were public officials going about their jobs of trying to better serve the people of Virginia Beach. The tragic item is, and I'm sure Tim will speak to this as well, this is not the first mass shooting we've had in Virginia. We saw it in Virginia Beach last Friday. A number of years back, when Tim was governor, we saw it on a college campus in Blacksburg. We saw it a little over a year ago on a baseball field in Alexandria, where members of Congress were going to practice. We saw it a few years back at Smith Mountain Lake when 2 young reporters were gunned down on live television. So I commend what Governor Northam has done in terms of calling for a special session. We have a variety of proposals about sensible gun legislation that the vast majority of gun owners actually support. We ought to at least start, both in Virginia and here in the halls of Congress, with the lowest hanging fruit: universal background checks. 90% of Virginians support that legislation. Now, that might not have stopped the tragedy that took place in Virginia Beach. But the one thing we know, that if we can prevent felons or individuals with serious mental health issues from obtaining firearms, that will mean a safer Virginia and safer America.
Thank you all very much. Yeah, this is one where we've just got too much scar tissue in Virginia. When I was the city councilman and mayor in Richmond, we had the second highest homicide rate in the United States. And like a mayor of San Francisco, I just went to too many crime scenes. I went to too many funerals. The ones that were really memorable were the homicide family victims support group meetings in church basements, and you hear the pain of that. But we did learn that you can take steps. You don't have to just accept it. You can take steps and bring down gun violence, which we did. I was governor of Virginia during, at that point, the worst shooting in American history at Virginia Tech. And, you know, everything from 18-year-old college freshmen to 70-plus-year-old Holocaust survivors who could survive the Holocaust, and then as a professor at Virginia Tech, gunned down trying to protect your students as you were being shot through the door. Again, we learned through pain that you can make improvements. I was able to fix part of our background record check system via executive order, and that made us safer. But when I went to my legislature, my GOP legislature, and said, let's have comprehensive background checks, even in the months after this horrible tragedy, they wouldn't do it. I was in Virginia Beach on Friday. I was there visiting with constituents in the morning, and had just left town about 2 hours before when I got the news about the shooting at the City Hall complex that I know so well. Public employees, one contractor that was there just to get a permit, people who had served their community, neighbors, friends. All they wanted to do was serve their neighbors and friends, and to be gunned down. And then the first responders, Mark mentioned that they acted bravely to stop the shooter, but also the police chief talking about the trauma on them as they're in that building all night long examining the crime scene, hearing the cell phones ring in the pockets of bodies now dead on the floor as loved ones are calling because they're seeing the news and they're trying to find out whether their loved ones are injured or not. Here's what I was thinking about over the weekend. After seeing too many of these, we do offer thoughts and prayers to victims. That's what we ought to do. And we think about them and we mourn them and we think about their accomplishments and the hole that they will leave in the life of a community. And we also think about a perpetrator. What was the reason? How can we understand it? What was going on? And there's questions there. But what we ought to be thinking about is that Congress has been a bystander. most evil that happens in the world doesn't just happen because of a perpetrator. It often happens because bystanders stand by and don't do anything. And Congress has just been a bystander for way too long. Congress has been a bystander as community after community has suffered these tragedies. I'm really happy that Governor Northam has challenged his own legislature and said, don't be a bystander. We're going to come back in a special session and we're going to take up meaningful legislation. As Senator Schumer mentioned, our leader mentioned, we have 2 bills from the House right now that are right in the Senate. They passed overwhelmingly. They're overwhelmingly popular with the American people. Both deal with background checks. One would make background checks uniform so that the current federal law that prohibit people from having weapons can just be enforced. It's not even a new law. It's just enforcing the existing law, overwhelmingly passed in the House. We should be taking it up. The second one is also a background check bill to fix the Charleston loophole. Right now, if the background check isn't completed within a few days, even if you're a felon, even if you're adjudicated mentally ill and dangerous, even if you're a domestic violence protective order, oh, they didn't get the background check done, so we'll just give the weapon to you. We ought to close that loophole. If we have a federal law that's been on the books for years, for decades, trying to block dangerous people from getting weapons, then we should have a meaningful enforcement of it. That would have stopped the Virginia Tech shooter. The Virginia Tech shooter got his weapon because of a glitch in the background check. That would have stopped the shooting at the church in Charleston. You can't do one thing that will solve all of these problems, but what I learned as mayor and what I learned as governor is you can act, you can make us safer, and then if you don't act, you're culpable when these crimes happen. I hope we can take steps, meaningful, common sense steps that the American public will support to make our communities safe.